All right, well, I'm very, very excited about my next guest. Let's just say that I've been talking about this, that maybe now in life, since I never did this in college, I become a lesbian. Like I go full being, and I'm like, okay, what chick would I marry? It would be her. So I'm very nervous because there's just too many credits to list. She is, of course, a multi-gold and platinum Juno award-winning songwriter. She's an author. She is an actress. She is an activist, an animal rights activist, in fact. She's a motivational speaker. She's a manager. I just assume that she's a beautiful dancer. You know her. You love her. She dominates here in Canada. It's Bif Naked. Do I call you Bif?
Oh my gosh, you are so sweet.
You're so beautiful. I can't stand it.
God bless you. Oh my God, I'm an old witch, ultimately, and all I think, I'm looking at your beautiful nails, and all I can think in my head is, I have witch hands. I actually have like the hands of a witch child. It's so
witch
disgusting.
baby. Okay, witch baby hands. That's very niche. There's probably a porn site for that. I'm just saying. No,
you know what? There is.
I think that you might be a Wiccan of some sorts because you're obviously casting spells. You look absolutely extraordinary, and I'll be honest, like spending the last couple of days reading about your life, I feel like I should really pull up my socks and do something with mine, because it seems like you've got your own line of CBD cannabis, because you wanted more of a natural treatment. Coming off of you're a survivor in about 1,000 senses of the word. I like the fact that, yes, ask a question soon, Carla. I like the fact that you had a tattoo that said survivor before you were diagnosed with cancer.
Everybody survives a lot, even going through adolescence. I mean, if you grew up as a prairie girl like I did, it's a life of misadventure often.
Yeah, I think adolescence there's already a whole pack of problems just going through the hormone years and the bullying and whatnot. And I know that you had a million other things thrown at you. And you're so damn positive. I love it. And I also like the fact that I wanted to start the interview with this. I read somewhere that you wanted to be, or you were a stand-up comedian. I'm like, this has got to be my first question to her out of the gate. That's what your wiki says. And you're very funny. And you talk about having 13 fiancés. And my joke is that I've been engaged 6 or 17 times. So right there, we have a lot in common.
Yes.
Were you, in fact, a stand-up?
I was a girl. Never. Never. I was a girl that couldn't say no in high school, very popular. But of course, once, I was asked to be married to people, I couldn't say no to that.
No, it's rude.
Yes, and, my current husband, Snake, is my third husband. He's lovely. And I would have been happy to marry my Maltese that had died. He was my real husband, I think.
I understand, because you were together for, 17 years?
17 years of him biting everyone else and me apologizing for it and thinking he was the most adorable little thing in the world.
I know, that's there, because you were his person, right? And he's protected you. The very first dog that we got in Sault Ste. Marie when I was 5 years old was a Zaftig collie called Tubby. We brought Tubby home, and he nailed every kid, everybody who came to visit, but never me. Tubby went to a farm, by the way, despite me saying no. He's the best.
Amazing.
He protects me.
Amazing. Listen, if I hear dogs barking ever, I leak milk. I just want to be a dog mom for the rest of my life, really.
I feel like you're like the hot version of me, because I literally through the pandemic said, the other day I tried to breastfeed Dr. Zira. Is that wrong? I don't know.
Hilarious.
I'm bored, because that's how spoiled she is. So, first of all, okay, let's talk about it now. I understand that I've had 2 husbands, and the third one's free, right? Like a punch card?
That's funny. I never heard that before. I will use that for sure. Yeah, I think so. I always look at Liz Taylor. She had, 5?
Yeah, and sometimes it was the same dude.
God bless.
Right? Like someone came back around for seconds.
I hear that a lot.
I know.
I hear that a lot.
So I always say if I don't have 8 or 9 husbands by the time I meet my maker, I'm going to be terribly disappointed in myself. Are you basically a newlywed? Like, how long have you been married to Snake? Can I call him Snake? Or is that just for you?
Yes, his name
Okay.
is Steve. I call him Snake. We've been married for 4 years, which I
Oh,
cannot
wow.
actually believe. I met him 30 days after my dog died. And of course, when I got divorced from my second husband, I had sworn off all men, period, the end, all relationships, and just was happy to just be working, threw myself into my work. And, I have great friends, lots of old friends that I've had for 20 years. And of course, my dogs. And I was happy. And then once my dog passed away, like clockwork, the universe throws your next your next person into the ring, and that's what happened. So that was 7 years ago.
Oh, that's wonderful. I always think, yeah, when something leaves, it creates a vacuum. And
Yeah,
that way it can get filled up. And sometimes we have to make something leave, not in the case of a dog, which I always tell people I think it's worse than a human death in many respects because they're so dependent. They only live in their childhood. It's unconditional love. They never piss you off.
that's right.
Yeah, so Steve came in there, and I think the reason probably people list you as a stand-up comedian is that you're very, very witty during your shows, and it seems like at least your more recent shows are a combination platter of your songs year or earlier this year acoustically, and you read from your autobiography, I, Bificus, or you just make jokes about Steve Snake Allen. So I think that's why people think that you're a gifted comedian as well.
I hope so. I mean, because life's funny, it really is. I think that anyone who's accustomed to being a speaker or a performer or getting on stage, you kind of have, even if you're terrified to death, you still have to have a real sense of humor to do it at all. And I've always just thought that self-deprecating humor is really, really funny. Comedians have always been my idols. And I'm not as funny as Jan Arden. Jan Arden is very, 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 very funny.
Also a funny lady, yes. But
Very funny.
being a comedian, we all want to be rock stars, and I keep interviewing rock stars that say, oh, if only I could be a comedian. Trust me, you picked the right lane, babe.
That's funny. Yeah, it's naughty. I can't even imagine how challenging it is as a female, of course, all these years to be in comedy.
Well,
Must be very daunting.
I read something about you that I also related to, because you were talking about that in the 90s and through the early aughts when you were dominating, that you felt you had to be twice as good, whereas sometimes the boy bands were like just calling it in. And when people ask me, like, if I go to the Improv in Hollywood, I have to bring the house down. Whereas the dudes can just get up there and maybe play around and make fun. And I felt the same way, and I actually still feel the same way. Do you? Do you still feel you have to be?
Absolutely. 100%. In fact, now as I'm getting older, it's even worse. Really, it is, because all the old punk guys who are, they get old, they get crusty, they get like really salty looking, and it's cool. But,
Right.
the chicks, it's a different thing. So that's a new thing that I'm discovering, and I feel really defiant about it. I really like getting older, but I make lots of fun of myself being old.
But, well, I don't consider you old, and it's something, I never say I'm getting too old for this shit. I don't know if I'm just in denial, but because, again, there's like a lot that comes with that, and I was just thinking, like, Michael Keaton is slated to play Batman again, which I'm here for it. And no one blinks an eye. Harrison Ford is 106 years old, doing all these action movies. So I'm like, okay, if we have that, then let's bring back Michelle Pfeiffer can absolutely be Catwoman again. That I just feel like there's still that, the older man, no one cares, but they're just, well, I have a whole bit, like during the Super Bowl, they kept mentioning that Shakira was 43 and J-Lo 50. And I said, I'm sorry, is this a police report? Why am I getting their ages?
Right. Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
So is that why you came out swinging in the very sexy outfit and boxing gloves on Jim? Is that part of it?
We were trying to recreate a photo shoot, and Yeah, I think that it's good to to wear less in videos and stuff. I mean, that's the generation that we came from.
Right.
And yeah, it was you want to be arresting and you want to still kind of do that. I don't know. The next two videos might be a little different, but the songs are also a little different.
Well, I want to talk. Jim is the first single from Champion, your upcoming album,
Yeah.
so I'm watching it, and I was like, "Oh, this must be an ex-lover of Biff's." And then I'm like, "Oh, I think that's a dad figure." And it morphed into a different. This may be a boss. This is probably a record executive. So is Jim everybody who either lets you down or does you wrong?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Everyone has a Jim, and it could be any. You could exchange any name
Right.
for Jim. It's the song about betrayal and about somebody who has betrayed us. And yeah, it was played. That's actually Snake who plays Jim in the
Really?
video.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
So what was it
yeah.
like to knock out your husband? Like I don't know.
It was it was a long shoot because I wouldn't hit him. I didn't want to hit him. I didn't want to connect with him. I'm a terrible boxer, and I've sparred with him before. He's a boxer, and I'm not. I'm a better kicker than I am a puncher, and I didn't want to hurt him. So it took a long time to actually get the shot correct. I really held up the shoot by dilly dallying, but once I connected with him, it was great.
It's a great video. The video to Jim. You take your rightful place on the throne. You are a total queen in that. And I mean, I kickbox. It's a great. It's just a great release, though. It really is.
Yeah,
Especially this year. Sometimes you just got to hit something.
absolutely. Yeah, that's right. I think everybody should get into boxing.
It's a great workout. You come out of it with a better ass, and you just release so much tension and anger. That is not a good
That's
thing to
right.
hold on to. Now, I know you're very open about your story, and for those of you who aren't familiar, you really like plays like a movie of the week. It's unbelievable. You from New Delhi, abandoned, adopted, brought to Canada. You've lived through, by your own admission, a lot of abuse, an early addiction, early fame. The list goes on, and then you also went through a lumpectomy. Why can't I pronounce that? That's good. I want to speak it. And chemotherapy. And you are maybe the most positive, beautiful person inside and out that there is. So I feel like I'm putting you on the spot now, but you're a poster child for this year because everyone is struggling. What do you say to people who, need to get through the night right now?
Well, I think that when everyone goes there or it'll be okay. Often that's not really what someone who's struggling wants to hear. They just really want to feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
They want to express themselves and they want to be able to feel understood. And I think that's more what it's like. I have those days and those nights. I lay awake at night and worry and lament just like anyone else. I think that, often depression is, it's kind of natural for us to go in and out of depression at different times in our lives, depending on what the stimuli is emotionally or
Mm-hmm.
even hormonally. I think that we need to normalize the conversation surrounding, our mental health. And yes, our level of positivity or negativity. I know lots of pessimists. I love lots of pessimists. And they don't like optimism. They are annoyed. They are annoyed by what I get
Perky,
called Little Miss Possum. Yeah, they get
right?
very annoyed
Yeah,
by it because sometimes it can feel um, not contrived per se, but dismissive in a
sure.
way. And there's a fine line between being really optimistic and trying to cheer someone's spirits or uplift someone, and being kind of dismissive. And I learned a lot about that when I was doing cancer treatments. It's very natural for people to say, "Oh, you'll be fine," or "Oh, you don't look sick," or "Well, you lived." That's the most important thing. And somehow, most of the cancer patients that I volunteer with, of course, it feels very minimizing to their experience. It feels very dismissive. It gets depressing because they feel like they can't complain,
There's
that they
no
have to
space
live
for
in
that,
gratitude
right?
every day. Yeah, and I think that even with, particularly this year with COVID-19, the pandemic, lockdown, a lot of people are extremely defeated and isolated and depressed. Yes, even if they still kept their jobs and have to work from home, there's a chorus of the population that still says, you can't complain, at least you have a job. You can't complain, you have a privilege of working at home. Yes, those things are true, but at the same time, it does minimize the emotional experience of that person because it's all relative.
And
You
every
know,
feeling is valid, right? It
yeah,
is all relative, and
yeah,
every feeling is valid. You know, a friend and I were just talking about it. You know that you feel this. Well, mine's probably Catholic guilt. If ever you feel down, and then you think, okay, but look at that person. They don't even have eyesight, or
that's right.
people are starving or homeless, and I get wrapped up in that too. And then they go, but you can't keep it inside.
Hmm.
Because it festers, and that's not healthy either. You have to, everybody has to have room for their feelings to be legitimate.
Yes, it's all relative.
And also, I think that, as you mentioned, no one wants to be thrown in a herd. Like right now, it's just like, well, nobody can, we're all in it, so that's everyone. I never like to hear if I'm down about something, well, that's everybody right now. Okay.
Yeah, it's minimizing.
Yeah. So how do you? I know that you connect probably more than a lot of performers, Biff. When you're, because I know that you take the time, and people come up to you after shows. Like there's not much of a wall between you and your fan base, and I'm sure are a lot of them cancer survivors themselves, or abuse survivors, or just people who are moved by you. Who do you think you really speak to?
Well, I've been so lucky in my career to be able to play rock and roll, and that's the truth because I've developed a lot of guy fans who maybe wouldn't admit to going to a Bif Naked show, but they do. And now, as I'm older, my fans have also gotten older with me. So I love doing the acoustic shows and the book readings because they can get a babysitter and come out on a weeknight because I'm in a soft theater venue and it's an
Right.
early show. And we have a different way of relating. We're Generation X. So we all remember 80s bands and we love them. We still love them. And all of these references, these pop culture references that that shaped us, that really formed us. And that's something that's really fun to be able to relate to other people with. But yes, I get a lot of women who are over 40, and many of whom are either sexual assault survivors, which is going to probably be 1 in 6 women that are at my show, or it's going to be cancer survivors, which is 1 in 8. And we can relate on a lot of levels, and we can make fun of ourselves. And I cry every show. I cry, we sing, and I cry, or I read in the book and we cry. And then, Snake always rolls his eyes, they're crying again. And then I argue with him on the stage, and then it goes back into funny. But it's it's a 3-hour show, and I just love it. I love doing it.
Well, they're both releases too. Like people have to remember
Yeah.
that tears and laughter are very close. And you're talking the wrong guy. I cry at a Geico commercial. I literally cried during Napoleon Dynamite. People ask why. I'm like, because then he danced for his friend Pedro, and I may have had my own stuff going on. But I
Oh,
find that the two are very close, right? They're
yes,
people think it's the opposite, and I think they're neighbors personally. So
absolutely.
when you're letting that out, and yeah, and it's that's a good storyteller though, right? You're having the release, and then you go into a little drama, and then the levity, which is mirroring life. And I would also think that your fans, you have the same pop culture references, and you probably have the same life references, right? Like they've gone through a divorce,
100%.
or
Yes.
so how does
And
a
that's the good thing about getting older is because as everybody gets older, we're all going to experience the same things.
Do you wish you had a hot tub time machine to go back? I think, have you been performing like 25 years? Did I read? It doesn't seem possible.
My
But
first show would have been 1988.
wow. So is there
I'm an
any?
old witch.
Yeah, I know I'm very tempted to have to jump in right now and say I'm older, but both Dr. Zero and I are lying about our age. Is there something, would you hot tub time machine it? And, because I find like as we get older, we care less about what other people think. Is there something you would do differently, or do you like the way it's played out and the lessons you learned?
I feel so lucky, to even be alive half the time. And I've kind of carried that weird survival gratitude with me since I was in my 20s. Like, I can't believe that, certain dudes didn't kill me, drugs didn't kill me, car accidents didn't kill me, all these things. And I just think, yeah, I can't say I would change anything at all. I can't believe I got to make music videos. I can't believe it. I have like 25 music videos. Even if nobody watches
Wow.
video channels anymore, I just look at it and go, wow, my mom can like watch them all. It's pretty interesting. And I love making music, and I keep everything. I keep scraps of paper. I'm very sentimental. I never throw anything out. And every time I see a photo, I know exactly the minute it was taken, where it is, how old we all were. And I love it. I'm very nostalgic. And I just think it's funny and fun to look back at our lives, even if we were idiots. Those idiotic decisions we made, they led us to who we are now. So we can't, berate ourselves for them.
I'd go back and make more idiot moves while I could.
Yeah. Yes.
They
That's
and
exactly.
and for your artistry, I think that all shapes it too. I mean, I also think you're probably very much ahead of your time in that. Like now, everyone knows the attitude of gratitude, and the new thought tells us how much. But I think 25 years ago, I don't remember that being really in the vernacular, and yet you were grateful no matter what life was throwing at you. It sounds like you had a head start on a lot of things, a lot of people, a lot of us are just catching on to now. Why do you think that
Well,
you
I
knew
just
that?
think
Was it
that
intuitive?
no, I don't know if it was intuitive or if I just blame my parents because they were just such bleeding hearts. But my manager, who's been my manager since 1992, always told me never to talk between songs.
What?
Don't talk. He said you're ruining your tough image. You ruin your tough girl image as soon as you open your mouth. So do not talk. And my American manager John Zazula said the same thing. And it was just like, we would do these tough songs, or we would do like a Bad Brains cover, and be punching the kids in the front row or whatever the case. And then I would talk in this high little voice and go, "Thank you for coming in. I just love everybody so much. My heart for your heart." And they would just be like, "Shut up. Stop it. Stop talking." And that's never changed. I mean, he still says, "I had to unfollow you on Instagram. You're just too yoga for me." And I laugh.
I
I
don't even
don't
know that
care. I'm
really
like,
means to.
"Oh, yeah.
But
Exactly."
but don't you think your managers are missing the fact that there's two sides to rock and roll? There's leather and lace. There's the sweet and sour.
Oh, I love that. Yes, there is leather and lace. Oh, I just have to get this girl who has poop all over her bum right now.
Oh my God, that is the cutest.
Oh,
I
oh
have
my God, we both stink like diarrhea and baby wipes right now, don't we? Yes, we do.
But when it's your dog, you don't care. Oh my gosh, that
That's
is
right. That's
I
right.
completely have
Yeah.
lost focus because I'm already looking. Biff, I'm very easily distracted by something shiny like you. I'm just literally staring into your eyes the entire time you're talking and having to concentrate. And now there's an adorable
Oh,
dog. There's only so much
I know.
beauty I can
She's
take in. Listen, we've been sort of, with everyone, I've been asking them, what's your chuckle and what's your chill? And again, I could talk to you for a week because I feel like you're like a wise sage. You're like a hot Yoda among us. But what makes
Oh,
you...
God bless you. I like that, hot Yoda. That
You
sounds
are
like a
hot.
band name.
Yes.
Thank
Ladies and
you.
gentlemen, please welcome hot yoga. It's Yoda. So what makes you laugh, and what? Because I know that you're very charming and witty on stage, but what really cracks you up?
My friends. My friends and jokes and comedy and, poop jokes and boob jokes and toilet humor. I still love it as much as I did when I was a young person. And I'll never not think it's funny.
Because it will never not be funny. I always say I have the same sense of humor as a
It'll never
14-year-old
not be
boy.
funny.
But scatological humor is awesome. That's why it's stood the test of time.
That's right.
You make a
That's
fart
exactly
joke
right.
and you're going to kill. And the French love it too.
That's exactly right.
And what would be your chill? Like, what do you? I know that you've meditated for a long time, but how do you chill? Say before a show, or when you just need to turn everything off?
Honestly, I think it's normal for performers to have anxiety, and I've always had it. I always have to really just really like check in with myself, and I find that I do that a lot naturally all day long. And just to give myself a reality check, everything is impermanent, and that's really the truth. Nothing really actually matters as much as the health of our family or our health or our parents or whatever the case. And I have to have those reminders and take deep breaths once in a while, and I think that probably helps everybody.
It does. One of my favorite quotes is Charlie Chaplin saying, "Nothing is permanent in this wicked world, not even our problems." And I try to
Yes,
keep that in mind.
100%. That's a great quote.
And I know that you prefer the singer-songwriter to acting because you get to bring your poetry to life. Would that, if you had to pick one of your passions, would it be poetry or lyric writing? Is that what you think
100%.
would you say that's your first in your LinkedIn skills list of all of, I know you're a manager now as well, but would you still put the writing first, Bif?
I love writing. I just do. I think that anybody who is a writer, you don't even have to be a good writer to be a writer. All you have to do is write. And I just think that it is the way that I can be the most honest with myself, even if no one ever sees your writing. The key is just to get it on paper, as we say in our generation. I mean, I still write everything in longhand. I still use a pen and a pad. But I love it. It's very, it can be very transformative for us to write everything down.
Well, it's also the pen and pad still counts now more than ever because that's the effect it has on your brain, right? If you're looking to manifest or change something, it's not going to work just to put it in. I still go long form, and then I can put it in the computer if need be. But there's something magical that happens when you're putting pen to paper. I think that's...
Oh, definitely. I think that's why they have adult coloring books. It definitely calms you down. It calms your heart rate down. It, releases serotonin or whatever. It's good for us.
It really, you're good for us. That was a cheesy segue because I'm feeling a bit like I'm fangirling out here. I really think, Bif, that if you had a cult, I would join it like today.
God bless you.
And we need you, like more than ever. And you really are. You are a hero of mine, and I think to many. And it's so nice to meet you, and then find out that you're even more fabulous in person.
I can't wait to meet you in person next time.
Yeah, and I really hope you'll come play here at the Elmo because it's just the perfect icon situation.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to play there.
Thanks so much for talking to me this morning. And really, you're really the breath of fresh air. And I just feel like I'm just throwing a bunch of cliches at you, but I mean them with my whole heart. You're extraordinary, and you've inspired me. And as I said, that's we really need that right now. So just thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for inspiring me.
You're gorgeous, inside and out.
God bless.
All right, so it's okay. I love her. What? I'm very, you know what you get with me, and I adore Bif Naked. Check out the video. Jim with her third husband, Steve Snake Allen, and of course her books. I believe she has another book coming out very soon that's more science-y, concentrating on cancer. You can get Ibificus. All of her music videos. I think that's a great nostalgic trip. It means a lot to her. Check them out. She's fantastic. And maybe the reason that nothing's ever killed her is because she's immortal. That's what my betting money's on. Are you immortal, Bif? Is that what I'm going to find out?
You're so cute. You are so sweet.
Well,
You're
I mean,
so sweet.
you're awesome. It's wild that we've never had a one-on-one before, but oh my goodness. Meanwhile,
I know.
Okay, well listen, you get to go take care of the little one, and we'll talk soon. I sure hope.
I hope so too. I would love to be able to do this in person with you.
Yeah, we will. We will. The second we can, we'll make that happen.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so basically during that entire Bif Naked interview, I was this close to just writing her poems. A bit of a girl crush going on. I'm gonna be honest, sometimes I was just looking at her beautiful features and not listening. No, I was. Speaking of pretty things, all right, full disclosure, my next guest is whom I refer to as my side piece. He's also my publicist and my Toronto roommate. So I've known him for a while. He's a bit like my little brother, and now he's a giant pop star. So we got him on the show so I can ride on his coattails. He has just released his first greatly anticipated album called Tove. He's open for the likes of Boy George, and his, I was going to say jingles almost, but his songs are catchy AF. Please welcome to Carla Collins Rocks Elmo, Cory Stewart.
Woo! We have to be our own audiences. Like, I feel like, you know, I could be the best Wendy Williams audience member ever these days with the amount of practice I've had having to cheer myself on over Zoom.
Are you now, even before the pandemic, Cory, let's be honest, you were the best Wendy Williams audience member.
That's accurate.
You're a big fan.
Yeah, that's very true. And how dare you?
Well, as you know, I know quite a bit of information about you, like the fact that you have the same taste in TV as a 16-year-old girl.
Yes, correct.
Self-admitted.
Or a woman who is about to have a child that's 16 is more accurate.
Same thing.
Yeah.
It's so good to see you. You look amazing.
Thank you. So do you. It's been forever.
I know, way long. Well, because times are weird, obviously. Typically,
what is
when
time?
I'd be in Canada, I'd be hanging with you.
Yep.
Downtown. So where to start? Okay. We have to, of course, quickly talk about the pandemic, which is now going on to a year.
Pandemic 2, this time it's personal.
Pandemic 2, Electric Boogaloo. I know, just like the shutdown's lousy, like a lot of sequels, you know, like WW84.
Exactly. Well, I don't get into the comic book world, but I'll trust you on that. And I've heard the rumors about that particular Criterion classic. So.
Exactly. Well, you know me, I'm not bogged down by facts, and I just use a lot of things for punchlines. So you are, though, out of all my friends, I think the most hardcore for this pandemic. You have been locked down tight because you're like, hey, now I don't have to make excuses about why I don't have to go to a party.
Correct.
But for a year now, you haven't even seen your folks.
No.
Okay, so tell us your reasoning on your shutdown.
Well, so I personally just live in fear that, you know, for some reason I'm going to be one of those silent carriers, and when I see my parents, I'm going to pass it to them and ultimately kill them, and that's not something you want to live with, unfortunately. So my mom is devastated, and of course I'd love to see her, and my dad, but I did say to my mom that this time last year I was with them for 2 weeks in Florida, and if you take that into little chunks and spread it out over a year, it all comes out in the wash. Like, we have cleared the amount of visitation time. It's just now we're coming up on the point where we have to reinstall. So I'm not sure what we're going to do. I'm hoping by the summer that we'll be able to do some socially distant stuff, because I'm not counting on that vaccina to get my way anytime soon. I think I'm like one of the last people to get it. So, you know, we'll make do and figure out what works.
By the way, vaccine and my latest drag queen name. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I figured you'd pick
Thanks
that
for
up.
that.
You're welcome.
So before we talk about the album, which is obviously the big money shot here in your life, it seems to me during the pandemic, you started doing an online show that, for someone like me, your big sister who's known you for a while, seems to have had a tremendous impact and greatly positive effect on you. You started producing a show called Queerantine, and you host the after show, Queerantine After Dark. That's probably not the name, but you know what I mean, because it's your show.
Maybe it should be.
So tell us how this happened and what exactly it is.
Yeah, so I started talking to a guy named Kisos who lives in New York City at the beginning of 2020 because we were hoping to assemble some sort of LGBTQ tour across North America with a few different acts, and, you know, sort of ignite things for a few of our friends and people that we knew, and hopefully start the ball rolling on that. And then well, we all know, spoiler alert, what happened next. So that wasn't an option anymore. So we found ourselves searching for an alternate way to bring the community together, the LGBTQ plus music community together, and also create a platform, because I think right now during the pandemic, artists are one of the many that are struggling career-wise in terms of being able to be seen and get that exposure, because oftentimes we count on those Pride festivals to perform. We count on, you know, random gigs around our own cities, and those obviously aren't happening. So we decided to create Queerantine, and Queerantine is a weekly showcase that airs on Sundays at 3 p.m. Eastern time on Twitch, which is this amazing video streaming platform. And what we do is we take 8 artists' music videos, or, you know, at-home recordings of live performances, things like that, and we air them like a TRL style show from back in the day when MTV was doing that sort of thing, and it wasn't just Teen Mom 15. So what we do is we air the 8 music videos, and we have a different co-host on every time. And I have co-hosted twice on that show because I produce it. So, I mean, I've got to look out for myself first, right?
Well, you're sleeping with the producer.
That's very true. So then we bring in a different co-host every week, and it's usually someone who's part of the community, and they host with Kisos and they go through the videos. And then we go into the after show where I have a different host in and also bring Kisos in as well. And we play a series of really dumb games. Most of them are humiliating to me and Kisos and make our guests look like the star. And we get in depth on what our guest is up to and what they're creatively doing and that sort of thing. I would say the best way to describe the after show is kind of likening it to Watch What Happens Live, because you know how much of a fan I am of that. So it's sort of modeled like that, except I create these stupid games. Like last week we had a guest named Jay Gregory on, and he has like an extensive catalog of music. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to take food coloring and put it on our tongues and paint renditions of the songs on paper and see if he could guess based on our tongue paintings. So like I have one here, it's a flower. So, and that was painted with my tongue. I've always been told my tongue is talented, but I didn't know just how talented until I had the proof. And
I have 57 punchlines, by the way.
I know. Well, I've got several. He guessed all of mine. He did not guess all of Kisos's. So, I mean, there's something to be said there. But yeah, so we're having a lot of fun.
Now I'm kind of concerned that you've been in lockdown for too long.
Yeah, seriously. I have a Wilson here that I've created out of a pita. No, so it's been cool. And the greatest thing about it all, and I think the best result, is that the community itself has grown so much, and all of these LGBTQ musicians from across the globe are connecting and supporting each other and lifting each other up. And it's created this community that I didn't know I needed until I got it. And now it feels like a lifelong journey in terms of like trying to build this community. And I know Kisos and I are even talking like once we get into 2028 and we're able to tour, it'll be great to maybe take this Queerantine brand on the road and do shows with different people in their local cities. And, you know, we've got plans, Carla, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Well, yeah, hashtag very busy. I think
Yeah.
also though it's not just I think it's been a lifeline for
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
guys. It sounds like it was a community that came together under these circumstances, but maybe has produced an environment where you're flourishing or more creative than you would have been normally.
Yeah, it's created a ripple effect, not just for myself and for Kisos, but for all the people who have been showcased and all the people who have been our guests, where we're all just sort of intermixing in ways that we wouldn't have before. I mean, when you're releasing music, and I know you've been with me at times where things haven't always gone the way I've wanted them to in terms of releasing some songs and whatever, it's very isolating and it's hard to feel like you're getting anywhere when you're doing it all on your own. And it's tough. And, you know, when you're smaller as well, you don't get that PR coverage. You don't get the recognition. People aren't listening to you. So this is just another way to sort of evolve us and help everyone along. Because I think that's important for all of us to sort of rise together and not have this sort of like selfishness about it. Let's all do this together and we're stronger.
Well, you know, the new age thinkers like Napoleon Hill, he would call that a mastermind group or
Sounds
or
accurate.
a think tank. No, but, okay, so it's a gay mastermind group.
Yeah.
With musically talented people, but it's the hive mentality. You understand that? Like,
Yeah.
You know, I joke about that here on the Funny Farm with Michael. Is that because then you have someone you can be creative with, and you can bounce ideas off of when there's no great outdoors currently.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And you need those people to be able to go back and forth with, especially in the creative aspect, you know, like even when you're writing jokes and things, you always run them by and sort of like get people's feelers on them and see. It's the same thing. Like it's nice to have someone or many people through text now that I can be like, hey, I have a new mix of my song. Can you listen to it? Tell me what you think. Didn't have that before. I mean, I had you and I would harass you regularly with my music, but now, you know, I'm giving you a break and letting other people kind of weigh in on it. So it's been great.
Which is good because they have actual musical talent. So that was probably the way to go. Even though, like, listen, we've always been good for each other because, you know, your Tom Brady joke, by the way, he just won the Super Bowl. I'm just telling you that.
I know.
Wow. And the guy, so, you know, the Tom Brady joke lives forever because the guy,
it's never going to end.
Killing it. Exactly.
He is going to be 6 feet under and winning the Super Bowl. Like that's just how it's going to work for him.
Immortal. So I want to get to the album because it's so unbelievably personal, and I know this. And you have such a flair for the dramatic. So when you talk about your influences being Madonna, Kylie Minogue, but also Phantom of the Opera and Cats.
No, God, no Cats.
But you do have a real love and passion for musical theater, and that is obviously evident on Tove. So I guess we have to start, and I know you've been talking about this in the press, and I also want to say congratulations because I know you've received some amazing reviews, which has got to be pumping you up when it's your first album ever.
Yeah, it's wild. Like I couldn't believe it, but I'm grateful, speechless, apparently.
So it's always harder to interview someone that I know because I don't want to assume that anybody watching or listening knows. So tell us who, the title of the album is Tove. So tell us who Tove is.
Yeah. So Tove was a very close friend of mine that I went to college with. And in the beginning of the pandemic Lovato, we did end up losing her to stomach cancer. We only found out about the diagnosis like in December of 2019. And then by April 2020, she was gone. So it was really rapid, really fast. And I found I knew that the album was going to be complete at some point by the end of last year, in terms of like all the tracks and working on it. And I thought to myself, like, what do I want to call this? What's a name that I'm going to love forever? Because I'm always going to reference this in my music career as like the first thing. And I thought, well, I'm going to love Tove forever, so I have to name it Tove. And actually, the last song on the album is a song I wrote called Little One. And I actually wrote it the night that we knew Tove was going to pass away. So I sent the rough cut of it to her sister, and her sister was able to play it for her on her hospital bed. And at that time, Tove couldn't speak, but she smiled apparently when she heard it, which I mean, it's terribly crushing, but at the same time, there's a sense of there's a sense of relief that at least I was able to connect with her, because of course we couldn't go to the hospitals or anything. And I mean, the other great thing to know is that Tove, unfortunately, had just gotten married, just bought a house, and just had her daughter. So her daughter,
that's who little one would be in the
so her daughter hopefully now has something to look back on. And when people like yourself are creating all of these press opportunities, it's great to know that Harper, her daughter, is going to be able to look back, watch back these things, hear about her mom, but also know that her mom was a huge rock star that like we're all talking about. So it makes me eternally happy. And and
her mom lives on forever in your music.
Exactly. Yeah. And
not just
in her
Harper,
memory,
but in the song, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that was the hope anyway. So it's been nice knowing that. A silver lining in an absolutely devastating scenario.
I know, and I know how much you miss her, and I know that, I mean, death is actually a reoccurring theme throughout your album, and obviously, and that reflects the insane times we're living in as well.
Yeah.
And I know how much that means, because oddly speaking to you today, I lost a friend in the comedy community in Los Angeles as we're talking, which, again, young and unexpected and really hit me hard.
I'm sorry.
The nicest thing where a lot of the comics are making jokes on his page. And I love that, because he
That's
would love
great.
that, right? Big Mike would have loved
that.
He used to produce all these bringer shows when they're like, right now, you're producing a show in heaven where everybody has to bring 5 people. There's 97 comics on. And, I always love to honor someone with the arts, right? Because
absolutely
it's celebratory.
I mean, Tove and her family have an amazing sense of humor too. So I think like one of the recent calls after Tove had passed, they were like, okay, well, we're planning the service or whatever. And I just said, okay, but when is the bris? Like, and we just like, you have to laugh in these horrible scenarios. Otherwise, it's been devastating. And I mean, there's no shortage of tears, including on release day. I actually canceled commitments on release day because I couldn't speak because I was so overwhelmed with the reception and just how people were talking about her. And it stirred up a lot of memories too, of course, right? And I think it was a hard grieving day for her family as well, just because when these things surfaced, I thought for some reason that naming the album and doing that would somehow not close a chapter, but put sort of a stamp on that period. And instead it just reopened the wound again, in terms of how I'm dealing with the grief and how I'm feeling that. But
well, sweetie, you may have learned a thing or two about grief from me, having
totally
been through that whole thing with my mom. So you know that
yeah.
it's never anything that you can close, put a lid on, put a
No.
button on it. You're never over it, or you go through it, and it hits you at different times. Sometimes it's just random. It's not an important date at all. It doesn't need to be the release date. It can be just you're walking your dog, or I don't know. It's grief is like this. It's not some kind of pie graph that you can.
Yeah.
And it's different for everyone. But you also have a song, not to be too Grim Reaper-esque, but you also have a song called "No More Trips to London," which is about your grandmother, and your mom sings backup vocals on it. So that's what I mean by there are a couple of songs that.
Yeah. Well, that portion of the album it's because of the musical theater, I've broken it into 3 acts. So the first act is betrayal. And the second act is heartbreak, and the third act is survival. And the grief songs are in the survival because as much as grief is grief. It teaches you a lot about survival and about your own strength. And
And carrying on. I mean,
yeah, you
because
have to. There's no other choice.
my grandma used to say the only people sad when someone dies are the people left behind. So it's really just up to us to try and carry on.
Exactly.
The others are having a fantastic party. You know, my mom's blackout drunk right now.
Exactly.
Speak in heaven, obviously. But and I also happen to know, because I've got the inside track, that Tumultuous Situation is also a very personal track, because that was inspired by another friend of yours and the situation they were going through. And I like that in this song about an abusive relationship, that you also have a female rapper or a female collaborator. I believe it's Michelle. It's Michelle Mondesir. I'm saying it.
Mondesir is how I say it, because I do not have the French Canadian background you do. But yeah, Michelle is so talented. She's a Toronto artist as well, actually. And I was introduced by a blog called The Q Reviews to her. And I went to one of her shows in Toronto and somehow convinced her to work with me. And that song itself, it's called End of Me, I was not in love with, particularly in the beginning. And then when I sent it over to her and got her to record her piece and she sent it back, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So she made me fall in love with that track. And I'm endlessly grateful for that. But she's fantastic. And she actually is part of a band called Madam Psychosis that is in Toronto and performs all across Canada as well. So.
And you do have a lot of collaborations from the LGBTQ plus community. You have Middle Child on Poison, you have Jackson. So it's great. It seems like that's why I wanted to start with talking about Queerantine, because I'm thinking the two are connected, that a lot of the friendships, online friendships and connections you made with Queerantine spilled over into Tove, the album.
Yeah, I think, well, it's true. Everyone basically that's on there is somewhat related to Queerantine in one way or another. Jackson, we did meet through Queerantine, and we wrote Grab the Fire, which is one of my favorite tracks on the album. And we're now working on a follow-up, because, I mean, when you get a good thing, why not make it even better? So there's that. My friend Kisos has a moment on the album as well. You know, it's more fun when you can work with friends, let's be honest. So
sure.
It was great. And it's nice to have a piece of the community that we built during this time sort of cemented in something that I've done. So
yeah, something concrete that lives on. And I know you're up to 250,000 streams on Spotify. Which, you know,
on the album,
I think a lot of my comedy albums are up to 25 streams, so I understand.
Yes.
Yes. All family members. And where can, and obviously people can get your album on iTunes and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, the safest bet is just to go to CoryJStewart.com. There's no E in Cory. I'm not an animal. So it's just CoryJStewart.com. And I stole I'm not an animal.
I want to do to like ruin this interview, but I won't.
I was just gonna say I stole the I'm not an animal from Carla. I am a material stealer of Carla's, and I admit to it. So you know what? It happens.
So you know, I obviously want to talk about that, but I've been talking to everybody on this show, because we put it together. We're metal meets mental health, and again, I keep saying it's the perfect three-way of comedy and music and spirituality, because of the times that we're, you know, again, obviously, like podcasts became mandatory like masks, but I'm asking everybody what makes them laugh, like what kind of gets you through the night, through these times. And then also like who your God is, or what brings you peace, or like, you know, I'm doing sort of a chuckle and chill. So I know you have a dark sense of humor like me, because it's slimming. So what's sort of keeping your spirits lifted during this time?
Well, you know that I love to find humor in the weirdest of places. So I think every day that changes for me in terms of what I end up finding funny. And oftentimes that thing that I find funny, I can only share with you or a select group of people.
Risk imprisonment.
Oh yeah, or or being canceled, which ultimately is imprisonment in 2020.
Exactly.
Are we in? What is time?
I doesn't matter. I'm going off the Mayan calendar now.
Perfect. I've got an advocate that's coming through Amazon next week. So I don't know. There's nothing specific, but I think that there's no shortage of things that are funny. And I think, like we talked about before, finding humor in the worst of situations is one of my skill sets. So I
It
think
is. I believe it's one of your LinkedIn special skills.
yeah, exactly. And I've got recommendations. So yeah, that's that. And then sorry, what was the other part of that question?
Well, because I think that the whole shutdown or this, now that we're into it for a year, has changed you. I mean, you look terrific, but I think it's changed everybody. And I'm just wondering, did you find a spiritual G spot, or because I know you're just going to make fun of anything deep that I ask you, but or is
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
is there something that you found out about yourself, or you know where I'm getting at? Like,
Yeah. I
like,
think
because we've been at home alone having to wrestle with our demons, and did you have an epiphany? You know, I fake my epiphanies, so I have them daily.
I definitely found some spiritual awakening in the recent season of The Real Housewives of New York.
Oh, I think you always found spiritual awakening.
No, I think ultimately one of the biggest challenges for me throughout my entire life is finding connection. And I think connection is really important for me, and I resist it a lot of times. So I think connection that I've found in the way of Queerantine and making a really good friend out of Kisos, my co-producer, I think that sort of thing has really led me in a different path and taken away a slight bit of cynicism. But there's still plenty in that vat that needs to be emptied. But still, the cynicism, it's like an iPhone battery that is slowly dwindling down, and we'll see where it ends up. But I mean, I think that's really it. It is more than anything. Weirdly, I feel more connected to people now than I did pre-pandemic. So
I know. I think that's ironic, but I completely understand it for you.
Yeah.
And isn't that fascinating that it takes a pandemic, a global pandemic, for you to start to feel connected to others? Because look, we all know we can be in a packed room and be completely lonely.
That's
or
the thing.
in a relationship and be lonely, or be with our families and be lonely. It's so I think in some ways you're answering my question, even though I know you don't want to go there, that you are finding a connection or something within yourself that's allowing you to open up.
Yeah. I think there's a realization that you're not going to feel connected at a drag show at Cruise and Tangos. You gotta like,
which oddly is where I feel most connected.
That's where I'm the closest to you. So yeah, I think that was a realization that I was looking for love in all the wrong places.
There you go.
So yeah.
I love that. No, that's fascinating. Because I mean, and I like the fact that you're still hanging on to a bit of system. Like, you're not, going to be touring with people when this is all over with. Or
no, it's not High School the Musical over here. There is still plenty of like negativity, but it's being countered. So there's a balance.
So because I know that I always like giving the guest the last word. I know, and that must shock you.
Wow, that must be very difficult.
I'm a giver, Cory.
Yeah.
I'm a giver. But because for anybody listening or watching now, I know that your songs reflect it. I know that you were bullied, and I know that you've been through some of your own personal demons, as you've been mentioning, going through grief, finding a connection, finally. Do you have any advice to anybody listening who is maybe struggling through this? Maybe there's an artist listening right now who wants to do the same thing with their music. What nuggets of wisdom would you spew?
I think ultimately, when you're in a place of low or desperation, sometimes it helps to just give instead of look for ways to receive. So, I mean, when I was starting with Queerantine, it wasn't so much about me, it was about helping the community. And I think if you can find ways to make, bless you.
Thank you.
I'm affecting you this much. I think when you find ways to be of service to people or to communities, oftentimes there's a greater purpose that comes forward, and you end up feeling just this much more healed after when you get into that.
So maybe just sometimes it's a matter of just getting out of our own way for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's a charity that you can help with in some way, whether that's virtually or, Twitter, as much as it's an evil demon, there are ways to meet people on there. And yeah, you got to keep your eyes open and just look for it, because it's sometimes not going to be right in front of you. Or sometimes it is.
Look at this M. Night Shyamalan twist ending.
You know what?
Cory
I wanted to
Stewart.
hit you with a little emotion.
I know. It's like talking to a really good-looking gay Yoda.
Well, I was thinking Gandhi, but sure.
Yes, I know you're aiming higher. Of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the waspy Gandhi is exactly
Exactly.
what I was going for.
Yeah, that's what they call me.
Oh,
Thank you for having me. I'm honored, and I'm so happy for you and this show. I think it's amazing. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
Well, I hope you're going to introduce me to the Queerantines, because, I just assume they're going to love me.
They're gonna eat you up like salsa on a tostito.
Delicious. Well, congratulations on Tove. And I got to tell you, what a great tribute to your friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
And, I love you.
I love you too.
Okay. Aww. I got your nose.
Oh my God. It doesn't work over Zoom.
Yeah, I'm making it work.
Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, check out this spectacularly sexy red chair that show producer and gay fiance Michael Stewart Webb added to the set. It's really getting more and more elaborate here on the Funny Farm. Well, obviously I want to thank my fabulous guests, my new best friend and girl crush, Bif Naked. In the words of Chandler Bing, could I have been any more effusive? Love her. And that little brat, my side piece, and adopted younger brother, Cory Stewart. Obviously, we need their music more than ever right now. So I want to thank them both for chatting with me today. And unfortunately, some sad news this week. The California comedy community lost a giant. Big Mike Mitchell passed away very suddenly. So we're all heartbroken and shocked. And, Mike was one of those rare, beautiful souls who was so supportive and giving and loving and warm. And I was going to say rare in Hollywood, but really rare anywhere. He was a producer and comedian in Los Angeles, and wow, as his Facebook now is being flooded with beautiful memories and testimonials and tributes. Mike was responsible for giving so many of us our starts and so much stage time, which is very precious, and as I said, always so supportive. Obviously, myself included. He kind of gave me my start in Los Angeles, and it was thanks to Big Mike that I played the Comedy Store and the Hollywood Improv, the Ha Ha Comedy Club, the Ice House, and I have my favorite story would probably be at the John Lovitz Club on Universal Walk. So nobody could give a better intro than Big Mike Mitchell, and he was often the MC or host of these shows, and when I was headlining once, verbatim, this is how he brought me to the stage. We are so fucking blessed to have this bitch. Please welcome the floating orgasm, Carla Collins. I gotta tell you, I don't care if I go on to play Madison Square Garden. Won't matter where I am in the world. No one is ever going to top that introduction. There will never be another Big Mike, and he's left a giant hole. He's just a beautiful, beautiful man. So we want to dedicate this show, R.I.P. Big Mike Mitchell. I know you're with your brother Marcus now, and you will be so terribly missed. So I guess the quotation to leave you with today is one of my favorites. I'm not even really certain who the author is, but grief is just love with nowhere to go. So I encourage us all to find somewhere for that love to go. Love whomever you're with right now, your family, your pets, like Mr. Cadbury, who you might hear panting in the background. I'm going to personally tonight spoon gay fiance against his will. Or maybe more importantly, love yourself. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you next week. Love you, Big Mike.
The only thing I don't like is everything. So let's try it again.
Yeah. once heard my old man say you'll never get what you want. I once heard my old man say what's good is probably false. And I wondered to myself if the way that he sees is the reason I could be so unhappy. I once heard my mama talk and she was down on herself. I once heard my mama putting down her inner wealth. And I wondered to myself, how could this ever be? How could the woman that I treasure be so unhappy? If only I could live my life without judging me. If only I could like my own originality. If only I could see what everyone sees, perhaps I would be less unhappy. I once was the boy you bullied, was the boy you scarred. I once was the one you called out on the cold schoolyard. And I wondered to myself, how is this happening? How is this still a problem in this century? If only I could live my life without judging me. If only I could like my own originality. If only I could see what everyone sees, perhaps I would be less unhappy. I've only got one chance to make this time count. I'm running out of gas, fighting off doubt. There's no point now in going backwards. If you're unhappy, then take back what's yours. If only I could live my life without judging me. If only I could like my own originality. I am unhappy at times, I am insecure. I am unhappy at times, some days I can't find the cure. Can I remind myself again, no matter how hard it seems, don't take this life for granted, just go after your dreams. If only I could live my life without judging me. If only we could like